I used to think that dying would feel sudden, like a car crash, or a stray bullet, or a heart giving up in the middle of the night. Not a whisper, not the soft, deliberate voice of something inhuman calling your name from the woods. My name is Julian. I'm 32. I've always been a rational guy, or at least I thought I was. No interest in ghost stories, no belief in curses, and definitely no time for signs or symbols or superstitions. But that changed 6 nights ago, because 6 nights ago, something with feathers and a voice like wind rustling through a corpse whispered my name from the trees. And now, I don't think I'm going to survive the week. It started when I came up to my uncle's old cabin in rural Vermont. It was October, that kind of bone-dry cold where the leaves don't fall so much as crack off the branches. My uncle had passed in July. Massive stroke. I hadn't seen him in years, but he left the place to me. No family left, no heirs, just me. I guess he thought I'd use it, and I did. I was a couple months out from a breakup. I just quit my job. Not some dramatic move, just the slow collapse of motivation that comes with depression you don't want to name. I thought maybe I could finish writing my book out here, clear my head, get away from phones and people and expectations. I got to the cabin just before sunset. Dust everywhere. No heat except the wood stove. But it was peaceful, isolated. The nearest town was 15 miles away, a weird little place called Langley Hollow. The kind of town where the gas station also sells homemade candles and the waitress at the diner knows your name by your second visit. On my first day, I stopped in for groceries, some firewood, and to set up internet for emergencies. When the cashier asked where I was staying, I told her the cabin off Route 89. She froze. Legitimately froze. "The Crowley place?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, surprised you remember my uncle. She didn't respond, just looked down at the counter and muttered something that sounded like, "Don't stay past 6. I thought I misheard. "What was that?" She shook her head. "Doesn't matter. Just don't listen to the woods. You'll be fine." I thought she was messing with me. One of those weird, small-town superstitions. But her face said otherwise. That first night, I made a fire, ate some ramen, opened my laptop, and tried to write. But my head was foggy. I kept checking the clock. I remember noticing the time exactly, 11:14 p.m. I had this odd, crawling sensation that someone was watching me from behind the window. The cabin has these large, square-pane windows that look out into the forest. At night, they're just black mirrors. I tried to focus, but the silence was unnerving. There was no traffic, no humming from appliances. Just wind. And then, somewhere in the dark, an owl hooted. It didn't sound normal. It wasn't that classic hoo-hoo you expect. It was lower, almost wet, like someone gargling the word you. I remember muttering, "Creepy-ass bird." I shut the laptop and tried to sleep. That night, I had a dream. I was walking through the woods barefoot. Everything was black and silver, like moonlight had washed the color out. There were no stars. The trees whispered something I couldn't understand. And ahead of me, just barely visible, stood a tall figure with the head of an owl. Not cartoonish, real. Feathers ruffled with the wind. Its beak opened, but no sound came out. I woke up gasping. Clock said 3:11 a.m. The next morning, I shook it off. Just a dream. New surroundings, unfamiliar sounds. Totally normal. But that's when I noticed something strange. There were no owl droppings on the porch. No feathers. No sign that anything had been perched nearby. Just deep claw marks in the wood railing, spaced unnaturally far apart. Like whatever had stood there wasn't quite an owl, or not just an owl. That evening, I video called my friend Mason. Told him about the weird dream, the owl, the creepy cashier. He laughed and said, "Bro, you've been in the woods 2 days and you're already turning into the Blair Witch dude." We joked about it, but then he said something that stuck with me. "Hey, you remember your uncle, right? He got real weird before he died. Like conspiracy theory weird. Maybe there's something in that cabin that messes with your head." I didn't laugh, because I did remember. My uncle had stopped coming to family gatherings years ago. Became a recluse. He'd started writing these long, ranting emails, stuff about the forest, waking up, and hearing voices. We all thought it was early dementia. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the dream. The owl. The dream. The silence. Around midnight, I heard it again. A soft hoot, deeper than before. It sounded closer. I turned off the lights and stared out the window. The forest looked still, but then a glint of movement, just at the edge of the trees. Two pale yellow eyes, wide, blinking, watching me. And then, I swear to God, I heard it. Julian, barely audible, like someone sighing into my ear. But it came from outside. My whole body locked up. I didn't move for minutes, just stared into the dark. My breath was shallow, my hands cold. The owl, or whatever it was, just stood there. And then, slowly its head rotated. Not just turned, rotated like a clock second hand. Smooth, deliberate, and human. I backed away from the window. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The dream, the owl man, the whisper, my name. The next morning, I drove into town again. I needed to talk to someone, figure out if this was real or if I was losing it. I stopped by the diner. The waitress, Tammy, brought me coffee and pie. She looked at me like she already knew I wasn't okay. First night, she asked. Second, I said, you believe in that owl thing? Her face turned serious. She sat down across from me. You know why your uncle moved up here, right? I shook my head. His wife died. Car crash. He was driving. Said something flew into the road. Big and white. He swerved. Hit a tree. After that, he changed. Said the forest was speaking to him. Told me once that the owl came to people who were marked. Marked for what? I asked. Regret, she whispered. Or death. I laughed. It sounded hollow. Look, I'm not saying it's true. But she leaned in. If you hear your name more than once, don't stay. Don't wait till the sixth night. That was the first time anyone said sixth night. I hadn't told her about the dream. When I got back to the cabin, the sun was setting. The trees cast long, spindly shadows like skeletal arms across the yard. I stayed up, waited for it, put my phone on voice recording, sat by the window, lights off, and at exactly 3:11 a.m., I heard it again. But this time, the voice didn't come from the woods. It came from inside the cabin, just behind me. Julian, my breath caught in my throat. I turned. Nothing. The cabin was empty. And yet, the voice lingered in my ears like it had spoken directly into my head. I grabbed my phone, played back the recording. Static. Then, faint, almost hidden, the sound of whispering. Not just one voice. Several. Layered. Speaking over each other. But one stood out. Mine. Saying, 6 more nights. I didn't sleep after that. How could I? Something had mimicked my voice. Something inside the cabin. I didn't know whether to run or scream or tear open the floorboards looking for a speaker. Instead, I sat there, motionless, holding my phone like it was a crucifix. By morning, the sun looked dull, like it had been filtered through smoke. Everything felt muted. My skin itched. I didn't shower. I just drove fast in a Langley Hollow. Tammy was at the diner again. She saw my face and didn't even ask. Just poured coffee, sat down, and said, "Tell me everything." I told her about the voice, the timestamp, the static. She paled when I mentioned the phrase. 6 more nights. She said, "It always starts with 6. That's how many it gives you. 6 nights to say goodbye, to confess, or be claimed." I almost laughed again. Claimed? By what? Some owl demon. Her voice dropped. You ever hear the Strigoi Umbra? No, not many have. It's older than any story we have in this town. It's not just a spirit. It's a kind of sentient omen. It attaches itself to people who carry guilt. Regret. It doesn't kill you right away. It warns you, gives you time to either run or admit what you did. I swallowed. What if I didn't do anything? Tammy leaned in. Everyone's done something. You think you haven't, but you have. I stood up, angry, tired, confused. I didn't come here for cryptic folklore. I just want to understand what's happening. She didn't blink, just said, "Then ask yourself why it picked you." That night, I tried something new. I opened my uncle's locked chest. It was still in the attic under a moth-eaten quilt. I used a hammer and screwdriver to pry it open. Inside, I found dozens of old handwritten journals. Dozens. Some dated all the way back to 1999, after his wife died. Most of it was nonsense, paranoid ramblings, pages filled with repeated phrases. I didn't see it in time. It wears the face of night. I'm not the only one. 6. Always 6. But then one passage froze me. Third night. The owl stood outside the window again. I heard her voice this time. Not mine, hers. Asking why I left her. Why I let her die. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a haunting. It was personal. It wasn't mimicking my voice. It was mimicking the voice of the person you failed. I felt sick because I knew who it would use for me. Fourth night. I didn't wait for 3:11 a.m. this time. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, blanket up to my chin like a child hiding from monsters. My phone was recording again. The lights were off. The wind picked up around 2 o'clock, leaves scratching the windows like nails. Then it came. Not a whisper. Not this time. A full voice. Female. Soft. Broken. Julian, why didn't you pick up the phone? I choked. I knew that voice. It was Emily. My ex. The one who... No, I couldn't say it out loud, but I remembered the night. She'd called 10 times. I was drunk. I ignored her. Next morning, she was gone. Suicide. Pills. Her sister said the note mentioned me, but I never asked what it said. I couldn't. Now that voice, her voice, was speaking from my closet. I sat up slowly. My fingers trembled as I turned on the lamp. Nothing. The door was cracked open. Just dark clothes. Dust. But the smell of her perfume. Vanilla, cheap floral, unmistakable. I stumbled back, knocked over the lamp. Everything went dark again, and I swear I saw movement. Long fingers, black feathers folding into the shadows. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Fifth day. I didn't leave bed. Didn't eat. Didn't speak. Just stared at the walls, wondering how long I had left. The mirror kept fogging over, even though there was no heat on. My laptop screen flickered without power. The owl, it wasn't outside anymore. It was inside me now. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it standing in the hallway. Tall, thin, wings too long, head rotating toward me, slowly, as if counting down. I knew it was waiting for the 6th night. And now, so was I. 6th night. I lit candles, realized I hadn't shaved or showered in days. I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't an apology. It was just the truth. I told Emily I was scared, that I thought if I answered her calls, I'd have to admit I was broken too, that I thought ignoring it would make it go away. But grief doesn't go away. It just grows feathers. Sharp ones. At 3:11, I stood by the window. The forest was quiet. Then a sound. Not a hoot. Not a whisper. Knocking. 3 slow knocks on the front door. I didn't move. Then a 4th. 5th. 6th. I opened the door. There was no one there. Only a single black feather. And a voice behind me that said, "Time's up." The feather was warm. I know how insane that sounds. Feathers aren't supposed to feel warm. They're supposed to feel soft, maybe a little oily like something natural. But this one radiated heat like it had just come out of a furnace. I didn't bring it inside. I shut the door, locked all 3 bolts, and sat on the floor of the living room, arms around my knees, staring at the fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. My breathing felt shallow. The feather still lay outside on the porch. I could feel it through the wood, like it was calling to me. I didn't pick it up, but I also couldn't throw it away, because something told me it wasn't finished. The morning of the 7th day felt like a funeral. The sky was bruised purple. Trees stood still as statues. No birds, no rustling leaves. Even the wind was dead. I drove to town again. It was like instinct, like I needed people, eyes, witnesses, anything to prove I was still real, that I still had time. But when I got to the diner, Tammy wasn't there. Neither was anyone else. Chairs flipped upside down on tables. Napkins on the floor. Coffee still steaming behind the counter. That's when I saw it. A black feather floating in a coffee pot. I backed away, slowly, until I bumped into something cold and hard behind me. It was the mirror on the wall, but the reflection didn't match me. My reflection blinked, but I didn't. I ran outside. I drove back, tires skidding on dirt roads. My fingers were white around the steering wheel. The cabin looked different, smaller, twisted somehow, like it had aged overnight. The wooden panels were darker, as if soaked in something thick and black. I should have kept driving. I should have never come back. But the owl doesn't let you run. That's the rule. I opened the door. There was a note pinned to the inside. Confess before the feathers take root. I didn't know what that meant, but I could feel it. The guilt, the pain, the rot spreading inward like veins of black ink crawling under my skin. I kept touching my chest, expecting to feel feathers pushing out. My body didn't belong to me anymore. That night, the dream started, if you can even call them that. I was in a hallway that stretched endlessly in both directions. The wallpaper peeled like old skin. Dim lights flickered overhead, and I wasn't alone. There were others. Shadows. Pale, silent people lining the walls. Some had feathers sprouting from their mouths. Others scratched at their throats, trying to speak, but no sound came out. Then I saw her. Emily. She stood at the end of the hallway. Hair matted to her cheeks, mascara streaked like tears. She wasn't crying, though. She was smiling, but not the smile I remembered. It was wide, inhuman, like her jaw had been cracked open and stitched into a grin. She raised her hand and pointed behind me. I turned. There it was. The owl, but not a bird. Not really. It was a shape, tall, wrapped in wings that twitched and writhed like snakes. No eyes, no beak, just the impression of an owl, like a shadow, trying to remember what it was. And when it spoke, it didn't use words. It used thoughts, memories, shame, everything I'd buried. I woke up screaming. My sheets were soaked, my fingernails caked in blood from scratching my own chest. I stumbled into the bathroom, flicked the light on, and fell to my knees. My reflection had feathers, dozens of small, black, oily plumes blooming along my neck and shoulders like fungus. I screamed again, grabbed a razor from the sink. I began shaving them off, one by one, sobbing, shaking. Each one I cut left a mark. Not blood, not exactly. Just darkness, like I was bleeding shadows. By dawn, I knew I had to get out. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, a change of clothes. I didn't even shut the door behind me. I just drove, but the road didn't end. I drove for what felt like hours. But I kept passing the same crooked mailbox, the same dead deer on the side of the road, the same hollow-eyed scarecrow in the same field. I was in a loop. That's when the radio turned on. I hadn't touched it. At first, just static, then a voice. My voice. But it wasn't me talking. It was mocking me, repeating everything I had said to Emily in her last fight. Word for word. Then it said something I never said. You'll die as you lived. Denying everything. The engine died right after. I walked back. Took nearly 6 hours. By the time I reached the cabin again, my feet were bleeding. The door was wide open. Inside, all the lights were off. The TV was on, though. It played a video I didn't remember recording. A video of me, sleeping. But in the corner of the frame, something moved. The owl, just watching. Its head tilted, slowly, silently. Then the screen glitched, and the video restarted. Over and over. Me, sleeping. It watching. That night was the worst. I tried to hang garlic, salt the windows, light sage, anything I'd ever read about protecting myself. None of it mattered. At 3:11, I heard the door open, even though I'd locked it. Footsteps padded softly through the hallway. Not heavy, not human, featherlight. And then, my bedroom door creaked open. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just lay there, paralyzed, facing the wall, praying it would leave me alone. Then I felt it. Something sitting at the edge of the bed. I couldn't see it, but I felt its weight. Cold, massive. And then, it whispered my name, but not like before. This time it was gentle, almost loving. It whispered my name like a mother would, or a lover, or a god. I cried, not out of fear, out of shame. When I woke up, if you can even call it waking, I was still alive. But something was gone. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Not because of the feathers. Those were still there, but because my eyes were wrong. They didn't reflect the room. They didn't blink and sync. They weren't mine. I called Tammy. I don't even remember dialing. I just needed someone. She answered. Her voice was different. Hello. She said only one thing. Your death will not be loud, Julian. It will be remembered. Then she hung up. I haven't left the cabin since. I don't know what day it is anymore. There's no 7th night. Not really. The owl gave me 6 nights to confess. But I never did. I never told the truth. I never said I could have saved her. That I could have driven to her house. That I could have called 911. that I could have cared. Instead, I silenced my guilt, and now it's grown feathers. I don't think I'll die in a dramatic way. I think I'll just vanish, leave behind a black feather, a flicker of static, maybe a voice someone else will hear at 3:11 a.m., a whisper that knows their name. I stopped counting the days. Time had become meaningless. The sun rose and set, but I no longer marked its passage. I existed in a perpetual twilight, suspended between reality and nightmare. The cabin had transformed. The walls pulsed with a life of their own, breathing in sync with my ragged breaths. Shadows danced across the floor, forming shapes that whispered secrets I dared not understand. I avoided mirrors. My reflection no longer mirrored me. It watched, eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger, mocking my every move. The owl's presence was constant. It no longer needed to manifest physically. Its essence permeated the air, a suffocating weight pressing down on me. I felt its gaze even when I closed my eyes, its whispers echoing in my mind. I tried to leave, to escape the cabin's grasp, but the forest had become a labyrinth, paths twisting and looping back upon themselves. No matter how far I walked, I always returned to the cabin's doorstep, the owl's feather lying in wait. Desperation drove me to seek answers. I scoured my uncle's journals, searching for a way to break the cycle. Amidst the ramblings, I found a passage. The owl feeds on secrets. Only truth can banish its shadow. I knew what I had to do. I sat at the old desk, pen trembling in my hand, and began to write. I poured out every hidden sin, every buried regret, every truth I had refused to face. The words flowed, a cathartic release of guilt and shame. As I wrote the final sentence, the cabin fell silent. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a profound stillness. I stepped outside, the night air crisp and clear. The owl perched on a branch, its eyes meeting mine. For the first time, I saw not malice but understanding. It spread its wings and took flight, disappearing into the darkness. I returned to the cabin, a sense of peace settling over me. I slept soundly, free from nightmares. But as dawn broke, I awoke to find a feather on my pillow, a reminder that some truths cannot be escaped. I wish I could say the story ended there, that the owl's final flight meant freedom, that I returned to my life, haunted but safe. But truth clings like damp skin, and some things, especially the ones we try to bury, have a way of following us. When I came back from the cabin, I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't return calls. I quit my job. My therapist said I was exhibiting signs of psychotic trauma. I told her I hadn't slept in weeks because the owl was still whispering in my dreams. She doubled my meds. They didn't help, because every time I blinked, I saw it. Behind my eyelids, in the corner of mirrors, in the static hum of electronics. It didn't speak anymore, but it watched, and I knew what it was waiting for. The sixth night came fast. I hadn't realized how much time had passed. It was a Tuesday. The world kept moving. Sirens in the distance, TV shows premiering, neighbors mowing lawns. But I knew, deep down, I felt it in my chest like a countdown carved in a bone. That morning, I found another note tucked under my front door. No envelope, just folded parchment. In that same crooked script. Tonight, be ready. Truth demands sacrifice. I burned the note. I locked every door, nailed every window shut. I wrapped mirrors in black cloth and unplugged the fridge just to silence its humming. I even smeared salt around the thresholds, even though I didn't believe in that kind of thing. Not really, but belief isn't the requirement. Fear is. The sun dipped low. Shadows stretched thin like skin pulled too tight. Around midnight, the air shifted. Not in a metaphorical way. I mean, the pressure changed. Like something enormous was approaching, bending the atmosphere around it. My ears popped. The lights flickered. Then I heard it. Not a whisper. Not this time. A voice, deep and ancient, spoke from every direction at once. You wrote the truth, but you didn't tell it. I clutched my chest. I couldn't breathe. My heartbeat thudded so loud I thought my ribs would crack. The walls of my home creaked as if they were inhaling. I stumbled backward, into the hallway, toward the only place I still avoided. The mirror in my bedroom. I'd left it uncovered by accident. And in that mirror, I wasn't there. Not exactly. There was a version of me, but it wasn't breathing. Its skin was pale, lips blackened. It stared back with hollow, glassy eyes. And perched on its shoulder, the owl. Its feathers moved like ink in water, eyes shimmering with galaxies I didn't recognize. Then it spoke, but its beak didn't move. You took something that was never yours, and you thought silence would save you. I dropped to my knees, because I remembered something I hadn't allowed myself to think about in years. I was 17 when it happened. A hiking trip, me and my best friend Jonah. We went deep into the gorge. No phones, no compass, just two dumb kids looking for thrills. We found a cave, and inside the cave, we found something else. Bones, symbols carved into stone, and an altar. I told Jonah to leave it alone, but I was the one who took the feather. It shimmered in the torchlight. A long, dark feather that pulsed faintly in my hand like it was still alive. We fought about it. He tried to take it back. He fell. It was an accident. I told myself that 1,000 times. I didn't push him, but I also didn't scream for help. I didn't go for the ranger. I walked back alone. I said he slipped. Everyone believed me, but I knew. I buried that truth so deep I forgot it was mine. Until now, the owl tilted its head, staring straight into me. You must return what was stolen. I reached for my drawer. The feather was still there. After all these years, it had never rotted, never changed, just waited. I stepped outside, into the quiet. The stars were smeared across the sky like bruises. I walked for hours, feet bleeding, until I found the edge of the gorge. And I climbed down. There was the cave, waiting like it had never moved an inch. Inside, the altar glowed faintly, like it remembered me. I placed the feather back. I whispered, "I'm sorry." The cave shook, not violently, not like a threat, more like a sigh, a release. I turned to leave, but at the mouth of the cave, blocking the way, the owl stood, not perched, not winged. It had taken the shape of Jonah, or what Jonah might have become, and it spoke in his voice. You remember now. That's all it wanted. He smiled, not with anger, not with revenge, just sadness. And then he was gone. The forest fell still. No whispers, no voices, no owl. I climbed back up. The sun rose, and I knew I wasn't going to die, but something had died. That version of me that buried the truth and thought I could outrun it. I live quietly now. I talk to no one. But sometimes when I see a dark feather drifting in the wind, I look away because I know what it means. And I don't need to be reminded. Some things whisper your name not to end you, but to make sure you never forget.